We are back with our question of the day, everybody. Who do you think is at fault for the government shutdown?
Your options are Democrats, Republicans, both, or just not sure. It looks like 44% of you are saying Republicans, followed by 30% saying both.
Yeah, you can see it there. Continue to vote at WNDU.com.
Okay, so with this topic in mind, we are diving deeper into the shutdown and what it means for you at home. It's our job to be fair and get proper context as to where we are in terms of the shutdown and others over the years.
Yeah, so we've got Dr. Stephen Garenzer, a professor of political science at IU South Bend, to help walk us through this time period right now, what we're all experiencing together at the same time. We want to say thank you so much for being here and joining us on a busy day for you.
Sure.
Let's start here. I know we're only a few hours into the shutdown, but for those who don't know, in simplified terms, how did we get here? Why are we here in this moment?
Right, so government shutdowns occur like this. When the budget that's been approved by the Congress has met its deadline, like it ended at September 30th, 2025, and that was actually an extension already of a budget. And in order to keep the government alive, just, we saw earlier in the newscast that Michigan has done this, they could extend temporarily with a continuing resolution to say,
correct,
we will continue to fund the government at this level. In the meantime, they have to be working on the big budget for the whole year. And there are very few levers of power that the Democrats currently have in the federal government because they're in the minority in the House, minority in the Senate, and they don't have the presidency. But the minority in the Senate can hold up any bill because there's still the filibuster. And so for the moment, they're saying we will not approve, we will not agree to vote for a approval of any sort of continuing resolution if we don't get concessions on some of the budget matters that we are interested in.
So even though
it's a conflict.
So even though Dems are in the minority, they still have somewhat of power saying we're not going to move this forward.
That's right.
Okay.
And you know, every time that the party changes in the Senate, there's a question of, well, why don't they get rid of the filibuster? And it's because every time the majority changes, they'll know they'll be in the minority again, and it gives them one little sliver of power, and this is the only power that the Democrats have right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. Government shutdowns, really nothing new. This has happened in the past. How does this one match up with those?
Well, we'll find out over time, because always the question is, how long will this last? And who will give in and say, we can negotiate? And even just using the word give in, it has to, everybody wants to walk away saying like, I got what I needed and I wanted. And so until a negotiation can occur, which can allow each side to walk out and say to their people, hey, it worked out okay for me, we're going to be stuck in a situation where nobody wants to give in. So there have been government shutdowns that lasted as little as a week or 10 days. The last one that we experienced in 2019, I believe it was, lasted 35 days. That was the longest one that I'm aware of, at least in modern U.S. history, since these started becoming part of politics in the 90s. So the question of how long really is how dug in and how much room for wiggle is there in the middle for some type of negotiation.
So now you've got this tug of war, politically speaking now. You've got one side coming out saying this is why we're here, the other side saying the same thing. What are some of the misnomers that are out there right now? Clear the air, because a lot of people are confused genuinely about whose fault this is or why we're even in this situation.
Right. So each side is going to kind of want to blame the other. We are here because they won't do X or because they want Y. And so you have to be very careful when you're listening to either side say, here's why we are, and try to think about for yourself, what is it that what the Democrats are actually asking for? What is it the Republicans are saying, no, we can't offer that, we instead have this other thing? And a lot of the fluff at the top is going to be an attempt to exercise some sort of power or leverage to characterize what the other side stands for. You have to be very careful in those situations, I think.
Okay, so we know this will affect federal workers, but for people at home, how will this impact our day-to-day lives?
So the good news is, at first, lots of things it won't affect. So your trash will still be picked up. They're still going to be working on the road down the street. They'll still be putting up the new alerts for sirens and such like that. But where it will start to have an effect relatively soon is if you work for the federal government or you depend upon the federal government for a check that comes into your bank account, a Social Security check, a Medicare check, a Medicaid check, those could either slow down or stop coming at all, depending upon how long this lasts. If it's a week, it might be that your average person living at home and going to work is not going to feel much. But the longer it goes, the more those sorts of things start to matter. So for instance, state parks will be open running like fine, but if you want to go to a national park like Indiana Dunes, it might either be closed or the trash won't have been picked up, and the bathrooms won't have been cleaned.
Yeah.
And we'll start to see the difference between state government and federal government a little bit in those things too.
In about 15 seconds or
Yes.
so, when can these conversations between the Dems and the Republicans start to pick back up in terms of negotiating?
Yeah, well, right now they're not going very far at all. Each one has to get in front of the news cameras and say their piece. So today is Wednesday. I'm going to guess this goes at least through the weekend before you'll hear much about negotiations.
Okay.
Things are always going on behind the scenes that we don't know about,
Yeah.
and we will hear about them when they know that there's something they can accomplish. And there's also just one last quick thing. There are some advantages that also President Trump or the leaders of the Democrats can have to saying, like, I just can't talk anymore. They're not being serious. So look for some sort of false leads of hope and some false attempts to say we're done.
Yeah.
They'll get something done.
Listen, you always make politics very simple, easy to understand, so we love having you on.
It's very
here. Thank
complicated,
you.
though.
It's
I can
very
imagine.
complicated.
Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Stephen Garenza, thank you so much for doing this.
You're
We'll
welcome.
have more of this throughout the show as
Thank
well
you.
tonight. Let's get